What's going on with you two? I exclaimed as I walked in from work, only to find my husband and daughter sprawled on the living room floor. What's wrong? I rushed to their side, panic rising in my chest. They were both in the midst of a seizure, struggling to breathe. Without hesitation, I dialed for paramedics, and they were swiftly transported for treatment. As we rushed to the hospital, I was bombarded with questions, but all I could offer were fragmented observations. I was as clueless as anyone about what had caused this sudden collapse. In the hospital, as the doctors tended to them, I was ushered into a separate room, heart pounding with dread. "Are they okay?" I asked, desperation lacing my voice. "They'll be fine," the doctor assured me, especially Bonnie. The gravity of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. My strength seemed to evaporate at the doctor's words. From that moment, I was thrust into a whirlwind of uncertainty. My name is Wendy, and for the past 5 years, I've been married to Harley, living with our daughter Bonnie. I met Harley during my days as a post office clerk. He frequented the office to send out his handmade items for sale on a flea market app. What began as mere clerical exchanges gradually evolved into conversations, and soon I learned his name. After one routine transaction, Harley left me a piece of paper, hastily scrawled with his phone number. I hesitated, unsure of what to do. Eventually, curiosity won over, and I dialed the number. "Hello!" His voice on the other end was a mix of surprise and anticipation. "Is this Wendy?" he asked. "Yes, it's me. Did you give me your number?" I couldn't help but chuckle. I had been jittery before making the call, but somehow, those nerves dissipated as soon as we began talking. Before I knew it, an hour had flown by, and Harley casually asked me out on a date for the following week. "Next week sounds perfect," I replied, feeling a surge of excitement. "I'm looking forward to it." And so our dates became a regular occurrence. With each outing, we grew closer, our connection deepening organically. It wasn't long before our companionship blossomed into something more meaningful. There were no grand declarations of love, just a gradual understanding between us. When I was 26 and Harley was 28, he proposed. My response was an enthusiastic yes. I envisioned a blissful married life ahead of us, but reality had other plans. "I'm glad your parents were so welcoming," Harley remarked as we walked towards my childhood home. "I hope mine will be too." "I'm not so sure about that," I admitted, "but let's hope for the best." As we entered, my parents greeted us warmly, offering their congratulations. It was a heartwarming moment until my sister, Muriel, appeared. "Did you forget to tell Mr. Harley about me?" she teased, catching me off guard. "I'm sorry, I should have explained," I stammered, feeling a pang of guilt for not preparing Harley. Once the confusion was cleared up, pleasantries were exchanged, but little did I know, this encounter would unravel into a nightmare. Afterwards, my sister and I discussed the situation. Our relationship had never been particularly close, especially after I left home to support our ailing mother. I had sacrificed my education fund for her medical expenses, a decision she couldn't comprehend. I harbor no regrets about the choice I made. Sacrificing my education fund for my ailing mother was a decision I stand by. However, Meryl didn't take kindly to it. That moment became a turning point in our relationship. Despite having walked similar paths until then, from that juncture, we drifted apart. Our communication dwindled, and we seldom kept in touch. Even during occasional visits home, we made a point to avoid each other as much as possible. That dynamic remained unchanged. Yet, strangely, she seemed genuinely pleased about my marriage. "I thought this might break the ice," I remarked, attempting to lighten the tension. "That's nice. I wish I could find someone like Harley," she mused wistfully. "I'm sure you'll meet someone wonderful," I reassured her. But her response caught me off guard. "Actually, I think he may have already appeared," she hinted with an enigmatic smile that lingered in my mind. And so our married life began. With the arrival of our daughter, we reached the pinnacle of happiness. However, as time passed, subtle changes crept into our lives. Harley started coming home unusually late and began venturing out more frequently, even on holidays. Then, tragedy struck. Upon returning from work one day, I found both my husband and daughter lying unconscious in the living room. Panic surged through me as I rushed to their side, calling for help. Paramedics arrived swiftly, whisking them away for treatment. What happened? I asked frantically as they were taken to the hospital. I don't know, I confessed, my mind reeling with fear and confusion. At the hospital, after hours of agonizing wait, the doctor finally called me aside. Are they okay? I asked, bracing myself for the worst. They're stable now, the doctor assured me, but they've suffered from acute nicotine pesticide poisoning. Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived as the gravity of the situation sank in. Caught in a whirlwind of emotions, I found myself grappling with an unexpected turn of events. I am sorry, I mumbled, struggling to process the ordeal. I was taken aback by the diagnosis. What is acute nicotine pesticide poisoning? I inquired, my voice trembling with worry. It's a poisoning caused by ingesting an ingredient found in pesticides, the doctor explained. Symptoms include dizziness, convulsions, and difficulty breathing. Dread gripped me as I absorbed the severity of the situation. The doctors bombarded me with questions, probing for any clues about what could have caused it. But I was at a loss. I couldn't even recall what they had eaten before I arrived home. They were admitted to the hospital for further examination, but the next day brought a new wave of distress. Police officers arrived at our home. What's going on? I demanded, my heart racing with anxiety. This case appears to be more than just an accident. One officer stated, we'll be investigating it as a potential crime. Can you tell us exactly how you found them? Their scrutinizing gazes made me uneasy. It was clear they harbored suspicions, though I couldn't fathom why. Nevertheless, I cooperated with their inquiries, hoping to dispel any doubts. During the search, an officer discovered pesticides in our trash can. I don't know anything about this, I protested, genuine confusion clouding my mind. I don't remember buying it. Despite my protests, I was escorted to the police station for further questioning. I reasoned that fleeing would only deepen their suspicions. At the station, they took my fingerprints, which were later matched to those found on the pesticide container. I was detained pending the results. Anxiety gnawed at me as I awaited the outcome. When the results came back, the officer's words struck me like a blow. Your fingerprints match those on the pesticide, he declared. You're now a suspect in an attempted murder case. I was stunned. How could this be? I couldn't comprehend why my fingerprints were on the pesticide, let alone why I would harm my own family. As I sat in the interrogation room, my mind raced with confusion and fear. The interrogation stretched on, each question digging deeper into my actions on that fateful day. It started like any other day. I began, my voice trembling. I went to work at the post office as usual. After my usual lunch at a nearby cafe, which lasted about an hour, I returned home. I recounted to the officer. He seemed satisfied, but then he asked about the day before. That afternoon, I went to a nearby supermarket and bought a cake, I explained. After that, I went straight home. The officer then presented me with a laptop. Take a look at this, he said, showing me a video clip from a surveillance camera at a store. In the footage, a woman stood in front of a shelf stocked with pesticides. Is that not you in the video? The officer inquired. My heart skipped a beat as I scrutinized the screen. What is this? Why, it's me, I gasped. But then realization dawned on me. No, wait, this is not me. The officers exchanged incredulous glances. Are you sure? One asked cautiously. I pointed to the screen, where I noticed a detail. Look here, I urged, indicating a mole near the woman's mouth. I don't have a mole. This isn't me. It's my twin sister, Meryl. The revelation stunned even the police. Your twin sister. They echoed in disbelief. As they reviewed the evidence, they found footage of me at the supermarket wearing the same clothes as the woman in the video. However, no one outside my family would know if I had left the house dressed like that. It all makes sense now, I murmured. That's what it meant. Concern flooded me as I realized the implications. What has happened to my husband? I inquired anxiously. If he's out of the hospital and back at home, please check on him immediately. I believe he's been seeing my sister. The officer looked taken aback. How can you be so sure? Taking a deep breath, I explained, because they're having an affair. They're trying to frame me. But your husband is a victim too, isn't he? That way, suspicion would be diverted. The gravity of the situation seemed to dawn on the police. We'll need to investigate further, the officer conceded. I understand, I replied. But please check on both of them. It'll reveal everything. I understood that I was being detained. Typically, I would have been arrested immediately, but they decided to hold off on my arrest, recognizing the significance of my testimony. It felt like I was hanging on by a thread. 2 days later, I was summoned back to the interrogation room. As you suspected, we looked into your husband and found evidence of an affair, the officer informed me. We spoke to him, and he confessed to everything. I'm sorry about this, the officer continued. It was our oversight. For the time being, I was exonerated, but the ordeal was far from over. The betrayal by Harley and Meryl cut deep, especially considering they had implicated my young daughter. I knew I had to confront Harley. You've done a despicable thing, I told him, struggling to contain my anger. I can't believe you involved Bonnie in this to frame me. Meryl must have been behind this. Indeed, it turned out that Meryl had orchestrated the entire scheme. She had suggested preparing pesticides to frame me as a murderer. Harley, under her influence, had bought the pesticide and laced the cake with it while I was away at work, just as I had come to visit him. So, where is Meryl? I demanded. I don't know, Harley confessed. I couldn't reach her before the police took me. She must have run away. You'll pay for your crimes, I warned him. You're not getting away with this. As expected, Meryl had disappeared, but the police eventually found her hiding out at a man's home she had met through a dating service. She was taken to the police station, where she confessed to everything. I rushed to the police station to confront her. Meryl, why did you do this to me? Because I've never liked you since you left, she spat back. Then she revealed her resentment, explaining how she felt inferior to me for sacrificing my education for our family's sake. Despite the pain and betrayal, I couldn't help but feel a pang of pity for my sister. Her negative feelings towards me had festered over time, culminating in incidents like this one. Was that why you approached Harley? I asked, struggling to comprehend her motives. I just thought that if I slept with your husband, you would despair, she confessed coldly. When he came to greet me at the wedding, I knew I could manipulate him. In other words, she didn't choose Harley for who he was. She chose him because he was my husband. He said he was going to be with you when I was gone. That stupid man had a crush on me. I just made it easy for me to take advantage of him, she continued, devoid of remorse. I can't forgive Harley, but still, he was just being used by her. Despite the betrayal, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pity for Harley. Why did you target Bonnie? I demanded, struggling to contain my anger. Of course, it's because she's your daughter, she retorted, callously confirming my suspicions. Well, whatever the reason, what you did is unforgivable. You'll pay for it for the rest of your life, I vowed, my voice trembling with anger. With those words, she was taken away. The trial of Harley and Meryl commenced. My husband was accused of framing me for attempted murder and faced numerous charges. In the end, he was sentenced to prison, including payment of alimony. Meryl, too, faced trial, and despite her execution, she would soon serve her sentence and come out. However, even if they atoned for their crimes, the scars of their actions would linger. They would forever be labeled as ex-convicts. Meanwhile, my parents offered to move in with us. Would you and Bonnie like to come live with us? My mother proposed. I think your mom would be happy if you did. Though hesitant at first, I accepted her offer for my mother's sake, who was exhausted from the ordeal. With my mother's recovery and Bonnie's cheerful presence, our new life together began. From now on, the four of us would reside in a new house, finding happiness together.